Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, last month was the first time with updated raids, brand new bosses, and well, basically brand new nodes and everything else, added champion pools, and it's kind of needless to say, it didn't go too smoothly. A lot of missions were kind of tedious, a lot of fights and champion options seemed not to be working quite great, and inevitably Kabam is making adjustments. Now, it is quite important to recognize the intended design was harder than the raids were prior to the change, because initially raids got released at this level of difficulty, then Kabam reduced it here, and the idea was for Kabam to bring it back up here. Seems that they overshot a little bit, so we do see some changes, but not as big as first time around. So, hello summoners. After the first round of arcade games, raids, we have made a number of changes to help the experience feel more consistent and help with few more pesky missions prompts. Here's the full list of changes you can see in the upcoming round of raids. Bug fixes. Aeon will now properly trigger the knockdown prompt from Thanos Seth. Special attacks now trigger the knockdown trigger from Modok's mind games. And here we immediately need to point out that there were a lot of issues with ability accuracy champions basically switching off the nodes and not gaining attack bonus as a result. They have not mentioned whether they have or have not fixed it, therefore it's still unknown whether champions like Black Cat are going to be viable assault options. And the biggest issue is specifically in assault class, because many of the champions there do in fact reduce ability accuracy in one way, shape or form. And if that doesn't, work within the nodes to get those massive damage bonuses, half of the assault class is kind of useless. So it was definitely the hardest to find an assault option, and that, by the looks of it, hasn't changed, because we do not hear about any updates to assault pool or the change to the interaction with ability accuracy reduction. So it's still going to be extremely tricky for anybody carrying on assault champions. Buff node changes. Unblockable penance based on blockable duration now reduced from 5 seconds to 3. Yeah, fine. Modok's minigames whiff attack prompt now reduced from 3 to 2, so it's easier to whiff 2 attacks obviously than 3. And Modok's mind games attack into block prompt reduced from 5 to 4. That is a massive change, because that means you can do it with a single kind of like a combo in block rather than 2 combos in block, and that makes it significantly easier. At the same time though, I think they need to change one of the prompts entirely, because in the current form, 2 of the 3 prompts effectively prevent you from dealing damage, which was the most nonsensical champion fight design in a fight where time matters. It is a timed fight. You have 2 minutes to do damage as much as you can, and 2 of the 3 missions that the game forces you to do involve you not doing damage. Involve you whipping attacks, not making contact at all, or involve you hitting block. It is a very shitty design for a shitty fight. So, whilst I do expect Modok's fight to become easier with these changes, I still think it should have been altered more significantly than it has been. Especially considering that a lot of champions involve going unblockable, and this instantly messes with that as well. Like, if your A-Gun's unblockable, for instance, or if you're playing Nick Fury, ideally you want to play him being permanently unblockable, and hitting the block is, well, impossible then. So, I don't know why Kabam is designing these fights this way, but I don't think anybody's having particularly great time fighting that Modok. And you don't have to, it's meant to be a boss necessarily, but again, 2 out of the 3 missions in the fight, that's timed, where time's everything. Being forced to not do damage is just beyond frustrating, and there's no need for it. You can make challenging fights without them feeling tedious, and this feels tedious. And Modok changed. Increased base block base auto block cooldown from 7 to 10 seconds. Obviously that's making him slightly easier. And power gained on struck from tech sig ability reduced from 5% to 1.2%. Fair enough. We hope you have fun out there. We'll be continuing to collect more feedback on the node updates. Well, we'll see how it changes. Now, don't get me wrong. Everything that we read here will inevitably make the raids easier. My issue here is that I don't necessarily understand whether Kabam also intends to make them more enjoyable and more fun, because ultimately this is a game, and yes, raids are meant to be a challenge, but you can pose the challenge in an engaging manner. Again, some of these missions, some of these fights just are not good. Like, objectively thinking about the fight design, whether that is a fun, enjoyable, engaging fight. No, it isn't. If you need to effectively alternate in between having to knock down Modok, which typically involves taking some block damage, having to hit his block, or having to whiff attacks, it's just a shitty fight design. It really is. And throughout the entire quest, obviously, most of the fights are kind of fine, I'd say. And again, do not mind the increase in difficulty at all, as long as they make it seem worthwhile. Like, a good example is some of the String of Suffering fights. Once you learn to fight against Iron Fist, for instance, or Gwenpool, a lot of those fights are like really, really enjoyable. Like, I made a separate video praising Danny Moonstar fight in the Winter of Woe that we had to deal with, because it genuinely felt like I got better playing the fight and I had fun. And it was still tricky, and you still had to learn, and if you didn't, it cost you, and so on and so forth, which I think is fair. No matter how well I learn this Modok fight, it will never become fun, because it's not fun to be whiffing attacks or purposely hitting opponent's block and doing it repeatedly, and feeling that, you have to be super fast and you have to rush through it because there's only 2 minutes that you can do damage for it. Maybe in some different setting, in like some, again, Spring of Suffering, something like that, these fights could be made to feel decent, but not when the time is factor, not when revives cost a lot. Either way, overall though, these are good news that raids are becoming slightly easier. Hopefully that will encourage more people to try them, because raids are infinitely better than Lion's Quest. Honestly, I think MCOC is so over AQ, it's almost a shame Kabam is forcing us to do it 3 out of 4 weeks a month. And I know that we have gotten quite a lot of AQ quality of life improvements. It used to be 5 on, 3 off schedule, and now it's, on a weekly rotation and 4 days only. And there are additional things that make AQ easier, but God, it's still tedious. Wish I could do raid every week instead, because then you can get it done in a couple of days and then just rest. Either way, that's it for now. Let me know what you guys think about changes to the raids, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So